Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Awesome. Well, this time we're tackling the world of eBay selling using a chapter from this book called 1000 Ways to Hustle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's got a ton of information, like everything from setting up your shop to like really advanced strategies.
Wow, that's great. I've always kind of wondered, what actually goes into being a successful eBay seller?
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited about this one because my closet is calling.
Oh, I hear you. Mine too. So, where do we even start?
Well, the chapter kicks off with like the basics of setting up shop on eBay, creating an account, choosing a user ID, that kind of stuff.
Right, the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Seems pretty straightforward, but I'm curious if there's anything here that might surprise our listeners.
Well, I think even something like deciding between a personal account or a business account can be a strategic choice.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just sort of, dipping your toes in the water, personal account's probably fine.
Makes sense.
But if you're really serious about creating a full-blown eBay business.
eBay empire.
Yeah, exactly. A business account gives you extra tools and features.
Oh, interesting.
And then there's your user ID. That's important.
True.
Think of it as the sign for your digital storefront. You want something professional, something memorable.
Right. So glitter unicorn for Eva is out of the question if I'm selling vintage china.
Probably. It's all about first impressions and branding.
Okay. Noted. Now, the chapter mentions PayPal, but it doesn't really dive deep. I've used PayPal before, but is there anything specific that eBay sellers need to know?
Definitely. Having a verified PayPal account is crucial. It's all about that trust and security,
Yeah.
for both the seller and the buyer.
Got it.
It's kind of like a badge of legitimacy on eBay.
Makes sense.
Right.
Now, something that caught my eye, the About Me page, it's optional, but the book suggests it can help build rapport with buyers. Do you think it's really worth the effort? And how much should you reveal about yourself?
It's a good question. I think it's kind of like your elevator pitch. A chance to connect with buyers on a more personal level.
Right.
Let's say you're selling vintage clothing. You could talk about your passion for fashion history or how you source your pieces.
Ooh, good point.
It just adds that human touch, and helps you stand out.
You've convinced me. About Me page added to the to-do list. But okay, now let's talk photos. The book says amazing photos are key to a killer listing. Obviously, good lighting is important, but beyond that, how do you make your photos really pop?
You have to think like a visual storyteller.
Ooh.
Yeah, imagine your buyer can't physically hold the item.
Right.
So your photos have to do all the talking. Show off the best features, the character, composition, angles, backgrounds, all that matters. Multiple shots from different angles. Don't be afraid to show some imperfections, too.
Oh, you mean being transparent?
Exactly. Transparency builds trust.
Love that. Okay, on to titles. The book emphasizes using keywords they need to be specific, concise, and attention-grabbing. But how do you find those magic keywords that'll bring in the buyers?
Honestly, eBay's search bar is your best friend.
Really?
Yeah. Start typing in terms related to your item and see what pops up.
Yeah.
Those are the keywords real buyers are using.
Oh, so it's like eavesdropping on their searches.
Exactly. Instead of just vintage dress, you might use vintage 1950s red swing dress size medium.
Makes sense. You're telling the buyer and eBay's search engine exactly what you've got. Clever. Now, what about descriptions? I tend to get a little wordy, but I know online being concise is key. Is there a sweet spot, like a balance between giving enough info but not overwhelming the buyer?
For sure. You want to be detailed, but not drown them in a wall of text.
Right.
Hit the essentials. Condition, measurements, materials. But then don't be afraid to add some personality. Is there a story behind the item? Was it passed down in your family? Did you find it at a flea market in Paris?
I love that. Little storytelling.
Yeah, it adds value and makes your listing more memorable.
Totally. And of course, triple checking for typos. Always. Okay, let's move on to something I find a little daunting, choosing the right listing format. Auction versus buy it now, which one is king?
It really depends on the item and your goals.
Okay.
Auctions are great for creating excitement, and potentially getting a higher price, especially for rare or sought-after items.
It's true.
Imagine that vintage dress. If it's a designer piece or from a certain era, the bidding war could get intense.
Ooh, the thrill of the auction. But I also love predictability, if I have a price in mind Is buy it now better in that situation?
Totally. Buy it now is all about convenience and clarity. Here's the price, take it or leave it. Works well for common items or when you want a quick sale.
Got it.
And then there's the best offer option. It could be a good middle ground.
Best offer. Is that like a silent auction where buyers submit their bids privately? How does that even work?
It's more like a direct negotiation. Buyers can send you an offer, and you can accept, decline, or counter. It allows for some flexibility.
Interesting. I might have to play around with that one. Speaking of pricing, the book really stresses, like, doing your research, really knowing your market. But aside from just browsing eBay, what are some smart ways to set a competitive yet profitable price?
Okay, well, eBay itself is like your own personal research lab.
Oh.
Yeah, the completed listing section is a goldmine. It shows you what people have actually paid for similar items recently, not just what sellers are asking.
Well, that's helpful.
You can spot trends and really get a sense of what your item is worth.
So it's like being a detective, piecing together clues to crack the pricing code.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than just the selling price, right? We got to factor in those fees and shipping costs, too.
Absolutely. You have to factor those in to make sure you're actually making a profit.
Okay, good point.
It's a business, right? Every penny counts.
All right, you've officially scared me straight. No more casual listing sprees. I'm putting my business hat on. And speaking of business, let's talk logistics shipping. Getting that item safely to the buyer is crucial, especially if it's fragile or valuable. What are the key takeaways here?
Well, this is where things can get tricky. The chapter goes into a few different shipping options, like calculated shipping,
Yeah.
flat rate, and free shipping.
Yeah.
It seems like calculated shipping, where eBay does the math based on the buyer's location and the package, that might be the easiest.
Yeah, calculated shipping seems like it takes the guesswork out of it for sure. But wouldn't free shipping attract more buyers? I mean, everyone loves free shipping.
Oh, absolutely. Free shipping is like a huge draw for buyers, and it can be a really effective marketing tool.
Right.
But, free shipping isn't actually free for the seller.
True.
You got to make sure you're factoring those costs into your pricing so you're not losing money.
Ah, right. So if I offer free shipping, I need to make sure my item price is high enough to cover it.
Yep.
But then wouldn't that make my item less competitive compared to, someone with a lower price and paid shipping? Ugh, it's a dilemma.
It is. You kind of have to weigh the pros and cons and figure out what works best for your items and, your overall selling strategy.
Okay, well, enough with the shipping strategy headaches. Let's move on to something more concrete: packaging. I've received my fair share of poorly packaged eBay purchases over the years, so I know how important this is. What does the chapter recommend for making sure those precious items arrive safe and sound?
Basically, it comes down to two things: choosing the right materials and packing carefully. Sturdy boxes, good padding, plenty of tape.
Mm-hmm.
You want that item to arrive in the same condition it left your hands.
Right.
Because damaged goods lead to unhappy customers and negative feedback, and nobody wants that.
No, definitely not.
Mm.
Speaking of unhappy customers, let's talk about something that maybe doesn't get enough attention: customer service. I kind of think of eBay as a hands-off experience, but the book really stresses being responsive and attentive. How can we excel in this area?
Customer service can really make or break your eBay business. It's about building relationships, not just completing transactions. Answer questions quickly, be polite and professional, and handle returns fairly, even when you're dealing with difficult buyers.
Good point.
You're creating a positive experience, which can turn one-time buyers into repeat customers.
Right, like building your own little brand within eBay.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready to move beyond the basics now. The chapter mentions some advanced strategies that really caught my eye. What can we dive into here?
Well, the eBay Seller Hub is a must-know for any serious seller. It's like mission control for your eBay operation.
Ooh, mission control. I like it.
You can manage your listings, track your sales, analyze your data, all in one place.
Sounds like a major time saver. Now, what about those promoted listings I've heard about? Are those worth the extra cost?
Promoted listings can be great for getting your listings seen, especially if you're in a really competitive category.
Right.
It's like giving your listings a little boost. But as with any marketing expense, you got to weigh the cost and the potential benefit.
Got it. Use them strategically, not impulsively. Now, what about email lists? I've always been hesitant to get into that whole world, but the chapter mentions it as a way to build a loyal customer base. How does that even work with eBay?
It's a great way to stay connected to your buyers, announce new listings, offer special deals. You can even personalize things based on what they've bought before.
Interesting.
It's about turning those casual buyers into repeat customers and like building a little community.
Okay, you've persuaded me to give email marketing another look. Now let's dive into one of my favorite topics, pricing strategies. The chapter mentions some pretty interesting approaches beyond just setting a fixed price. Where do we start?
Let's talk charm pricing.
Ooh, charm pricing.
That seemed like a small detail, but those .99 endings, they make a big difference.
Really?
Yeah, it's a psychological thing. It makes us think something is cheaper than it actually is.
I always wondered about that. I'm totally guilty of falling for the .99 trick. So it's all about playing with those little psychological livers. What about the opposite end of the spectrum? Prestige pricing.
Prestige pricing uses round numbers to create a sense of luxury, high-end fashion, jewelry, rare collectibles, that kind of thing.
So if I'm selling that vintage designer dress, maybe I should skip the .99 and go for a nice, clean, round number.
Exactly. You want your pricing to reflect the value of the item.
Okay.
And then there's the classic competitive pricing strategy, keeping a close eye on what your competition is charging.
Yeah, that seems like a constant game of cat and mouse. Any tips for staying ahead?
Repricing software can be a game changer. It automatically tracks your competitors' prices and adjusts your listings. It's like your pricing ninja.
Wow, repricing software added to the shopping list. Okay, now let's talk about a strategy that makes me a little nervous. Loss leaders. Isn't that risky?
It can be. Loss leaders are all about offering a specific item at a really low price, maybe even below cost, to attract buyers to your shop.
So it's like a strategic sacrifice.
Yeah, you're hoping they'll buy other more profitable items while they're there.
Okay, I see. But it seems like you really need to know your inventory and profit margins to make this work.
Definitely.
Okay, what about bundling? That's a classic win-win, right? The buyer gets a discount and the seller makes a bigger sale.
Exactly. Bundling is a great way to encourage those bigger purchases and move multiple items at once. You could even create themed bundles.
Oh, I love that. Like a Mad Men collection of vintage clothing.
Exactly. It adds a fun, creative element.
So we've covered a lot of pricing strategies, but what about eBay's own tools? Are there features that can help us make smarter pricing decisions?
There are. If you have an eBay store, you get access to Terapeak product research, and it's amazing.
Oh, what is that?
It gives you all sorts of data on past sales, average selling prices, sell-through rates, everything. It's like having a crystal ball for pricing.
Wow, data-driven decision-making at its finest. Now, what about that sell similar feature? I see it when I'm creating listings. Does that give you any pricing guidance?
The sell similar feature is a good starting point. It analyzes similar listings and suggests a starting price for your item.
Okay.
But you should always do your own research. Don't just blindly trust the algorithm.
Got it. So we've got all these amazing tools and strategies for pricing, but now let's tackle something that feels a little more technical. eBay SEO. I know keywords are important, but beyond just sprinkling them into my listings, is there an art to optimizing my content for eBay's search engine?
Absolutely. Just like websites need SEO to rank well on Google, your eBay listings need to be optimized for eBay's search algorithm.
Okay.
It's about understanding how buyers search and making sure your listings show up when they hit that search button.
So it's not just about randomly throwing in keywords, it's a more strategic approach. Where do we even begin?
Keyword research is your foundation. And eBay gives you a great tool for this, the search bar autocomplete.
Oh, yeah.
Start typing in terms related to your item and pay attention to the suggestions that pop up. Those are actual searches that people are doing.
So if I'm selling that vintage dress, I might type in vintage dress, 1950s dress, or cocktail dress and see what eBay suggests.
Exactly. You get valuable insights into the language buyers are using and what they're searching for. And then you can incorporate those keywords into your titles and descriptions naturally.
So it's about speaking the buyer's language, not just stuffing my listings with random keywords.
Got it. Now, what about those long-tail keywords I've heard about? Are those relevant for eBay SEO as well?
Oh, definitely. Long-tail keywords are longer, more specific phrases that target a niche audience.
Can you give me an example?
Instead of just vintage dress, you might use vintage 1950s red swing dress with pocket size medium.
So the more specific, the better.
It's a balancing act. You want to be specific enough to attract qualified buyers, but not so niche that you, miss out on a broader audience. Okay, I'm starting to get it. Now let's talk about optimizing our listings. The chapter mentions maximizing title space. What are the key takeaways there?
Your title is your first impression. so you got to make it count. Use all 80 characters if you can, put the most important keywords first, and keep it clear and concise.
So if I'm selling that dress, I might start with vintage 1950s red swing dress and then add details like the size and condition.
Exactly. You're grabbing attention and providing essential information right up front. Oh, and please, no all caps or crazy special characters. It just looks spammy and unprofessional.
Okay, noted. No more screaming titles. Now, let's talk about optimizing those descriptions. Are keywords still important here?
Keywords are important, but remember you're writing for humans, not just search engines. Use those keywords naturally throughout your description, but focus on providing compelling and informative content. Tell the story behind your item, highlight its unique features, and answer any questions a buyer might have.
So, keywords for the search engines, engaging content for the human readers.
Got it. And what about those item specifics? Are those just for organization, or do they actually play a role in SEO as well?
Item specifics are crucial. They help eBay's search filters categorize your listings. So, yeah, they definitely impact SEO.
So the more specific I am with those item details, the better my chances of reaching the right buyers.
Exactly. It's all about making it easy for both the search engine and the buyer to understand exactly what you're selling. One last SEO tip. Consider using basic HTML formatting in your descriptions.
HTML, isn't that a little advanced for eBay?
It can help make your descriptions more readable and engaging. Basic things like bold, italics, line breaks. It just helps to break up the text and make it more visually appealing.
Okay, I'm willing to try out some HTML magic. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Setting up shop, creating killer listings, mastering shipping and customer service, and even diving into some of those advanced strategies like promoted listings and eBay SEO. Phew, I need a break. It's a lot to take in. But remember, this is just the beginning of your eBay journey. The more you learn and experiment, the better you'll get.
Okay, that's encouraging. Now, as we start to wrap up this deep dive into the world of eBay selling, I'm curious to hear your overall thoughts on this chapter. What really stood out to you?
I think what really struck me is how the chapter kind of reframes eBay. It's more than just buying and selling. It's like a platform for entrepreneurship.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a place where you can actually, turn your passions into profit.
And the chapter really emphasizes that entrepreneurial mindset, right? Like understanding your market, your customers, and the psychology of pricing.
Right. It's not just about listing stuff and hoping for the best. It's about creating a brand, building relationships, providing amazing customer service.
And always learning and adapting because the eBay world is constantly changing.
Oh, for sure. You got to stay ahead of the curve to be successful. But before we get too carried away with all the business talk, let's go back to something we talked about earlier. Choosing the right listing format. We mentioned best offer, but I'm still a little fuzzy on the details.
Me too. It seems like it could be a double-edged sword, potentially leading to higher profits, but also the risk of those lowball offers.
Yeah, you're right. Best offer definitely adds some uncertainty. It's a negotiation. You have to be willing to walk away if an offer isn't good enough.
Right.
But it can also be a great way to gauge buyer interest or maybe make a quicker sale.
Okay, so it's a tool that requires some finesse. And knowing your item's worth, I think I'm intrigued enough to try it out. Now, let's shift gears and talk about one last pricing strategy that the chapter mentions, just briefly. Dynamic pricing. It sounds kind of intimidating, like something only, seasoned pros use. Is this something our listeners should actually be thinking about?
Dynamic pricing can be really powerful, especially if you have a lot of items to sell. There are tools like Markdown Manager that let you schedule automatic price reductions over time.
Oh, cool. So you don't have to constantly be checking and adjusting your listings manually.
Exactly.
Okay, that's super helpful. So setting your pricing on autopilot, that could be a game changer for time management, especially for someone who's juggling eBay with other stuff.
For sure.
Okay, well, inspired by all this eBay wisdom, here's my final question for you. What unique item could you resource and sell on eBay using these strategies?
That's a good question. It really makes you think about your passions, your skills, what you have access to. Maybe you're great at finding vintage treasures at flea markets or antique shops.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're crafty and you can make handmade jewelry or upcycle furniture.
The possibilities are endless. It's all about tapping into your inner entrepreneur and looking at the world through an eBay lens. And remember, eBay has a ton of resources for sellers, from online tutorials to community forums. Right.
So don't be afraid to, dive in, experiment, and connect with other sellers.
The eBay community is super supportive. There's so much to learn from people who are already out there doing it.
Absolutely. So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of eBay selling. We hope you've learned a lot and are feeling inspired to start your own eBay adventure.
Yes.
Whether you're looking to declutter, make some extra cash, or even build a whole business, the strategies and tools we've talked about can help you get there.
Happy selling, everyone.
Until next time.
It really is. Like, the chapter really highlights that entrepreneurial mindset, understanding your market, your customers, and the psychology of pricing. It's not just about listing items and hoping for the best. It's about creating a brand, building relationships, and providing excellent customer service. Yeah, and like you said earlier, constantly learning and adapting, right? The eBay landscape is always changing, so staying ahead of the curve is crucial for success. But before we get too carried away with all the business talk, I want to circle back to something we discussed earlier, choosing the right listing format. You mentioned best offer, but I'm still a little, I don't know, I'm still a little fuzzy on the details. It seems like it could be a double-edged sword. Potentially leading to higher profits, but also the risk of those like lowball offers.
Yeah, best offer definitely introduces like an element of uncertainty. It's a negotiation, and you have to be prepared to walk away
Right.
if an offer doesn't meet like your minimum.
Right.
But it can also be a really good way to like gauge buyer interest or maybe make a quicker sale.
Okay, so it's a tool that requires a bit of finesse and a good understanding of your item's value. I think I'm intrigued enough to at least give it a try. Now, let's shift gears and talk about one last pricing strategy that the chapter mentions, just briefly. Dynamic pricing. It sounds kind of intimidating, like something only, seasoned pros would use. Is this something our listeners should actually be thinking about?
Dynamic pricing can be a powerful tool, especially for sellers with a large volume of items. Tools like Markdown Manager allow you to schedule automatic price reductions over time, so you don't have to constantly monitor and adjust your listings manually.
Ah, so it's like setting your pricing on autopilot?
Pretty much.
Okay, that could be a game changer for time management, especially for someone juggling eBay, selling with, other commitments.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, inspired by all this eBay wisdom, here's my final question for you. What unique item could you source and sell on eBay using these strategies?
Ooh, that's a good question. It really challenges you to think about your passions, your skills, and your access to unique items. Maybe you have a knack for finding vintage treasures at flea markets or antique shops. Or perhaps you have a talent for crafting handmade jewelry or upcycling old furniture.
The possibilities are endless. It's all about tapping into your entrepreneurial spirit and seeing the world through an eBay lens. And remember, eBay offers a wealth of resources for sellers, from online tutorials to community forums. Don't be afraid to dive in, experiment, and connect with other sellers.
Exactly. The eBay community is incredibly supportive, and there's a wealth of knowledge to be gained from those who have already navigated the ins and outs of the marketplace.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of eBay selling. We hope you've gleaned some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to launch your own eBay adventure. Remember, whether you're looking to declutter, earn some extra cash, or build a thriving online business, the strategies and tools we've discussed can help you achieve your goals.
Happy selling!
Until next time.